Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being on the call. Can everybody hear me? Can you hear me?
If you can hear us, type in where you're from in the chat.
Okay. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, good.
Ready to go?
Yeah?
Were you insisting on starting?
Ready to rock it?
Or can I?
Well, today I'll be interviewing Ryan Orrock. He doesn't know that the questions were prepared really for a different kind of interview. Ryan, this morning, I said, I'm going to introduce you, and then you introduce me. And he goes, you can introduce me. And I said, I can do anything I want. So can you. Free yourself. So I asked Ryan to interview me. And, my thinking originally was that we were going to do a nice question and answer format but it was basically going to be an introduction to the course that we're going to talk about.
Oops.
And genius marketing, of course, which is one of the reasons I love his work. The reason I asked him, though, to interview him is because he consistently asked the best questions of any student I've ever had. Questions that really got to the center of things, or questions that, gosh, that should have been mentioned, but it wasn't. It was overlooked. So I've given him license to ask whatever he wants. And I didn't promise I'd answer. Did I? Did I promise I'd answer anything? Anything that's relevant. And with that, I'll hand it over to Ryan. Thanks, Ryan. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you. And yeah, a few things to do as far as housekeeping and introductions and everything. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And I'm excited to be here with Jason. Jason, as I said in the introduction, has been formative and forming me and coaching me and helping me become who you see me becoming, who you see me presenting myself as in the world. And about the question thing, the reason that I think I've made such quick progress under his tutelage and also working with other people is because I wasn't afraid to ask the stupid questions and wasn't afraid to look stupid asking them. So let me recommend to you, if you're here, if you want to ask questions or send questions also that we cover with Jason, we may wait for them till the end, but go ahead and put those into the chat rather than muting yourself, and then we'll get to them all at the end. Does that sound like a deal, Jason?
Sounds like a deal to me.
Okay.
By the way, the way to get the most out of me, because I, never know what I might say, is to ask questions. And you're probably not the only one thinking whatever that question is. So.
Right.
Yeah. Thanks.
So I'm Ryan Orrock, and Jason's introduced me a little bit, but I work with sexuality professionals and building their practices and making a huge impact in the world. And Jason, my goodness, you read a little bit about him on the webinar page and on the Facebook event. But he is, not only has he had an incredible life, but he's not afraid of sharing that life and sharing the lessons that he's learned and sharing who he is. We know he's incredibly competent. He's worked with in the Tony Robbins organization as a high-up mucky-muck 20 years ago, I believe. Master NLP practitioner, has a whole string of credentials, and friends have called him the encyclopedia of all things personal development.
Cliff Notes, not nearly as as encyclopedia. The Cliff Notes.
Okay, the Cliff Notes of all things. Well, I see him as the encyclopedia. That tells you what kind of value I get from him. I bring in questions all the time about all sorts of crazy stuff, and it's just like he just starts rattling off literally, as much content as you can use about any topic. He's an expert. Nathaniel Brandon's work that he's customized himself and created ego development, looking at value versus worth issues. I could go on and on about his technical expertise, his skills as a coach and a mentor and a teacher. But I also wanted to give everyone the opportunity to get to know him a little bit better as a person. So we're going to do that a little bit today. And also talk about some ways to dive in with him as we move towards finishing the call. All right. So does that sound good?
Sounds good to me.
All right.
Yeah. I hope it sounds good to them.
Sound good to everybody else? Okay, right. So what we're going to do here, I'm looking off camera to find some questions here sometimes. So pay attention. Don't worry if I seem like I'm distracted. I'm not. I'm just staying with our conversation. Oh yeah, Jason says something funny. We will use adult language and adult themes. So we're going to talk about real life in this experience today and what
Can I
he's
say fuck?
been through. I think you can say whatever you want.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
This is the naked interview after all. Okay. So you know what? Maybe you can introduce yourself more deeply than I have. Talk a little bit about your story. What would you like to share?
I thought you were asking the questions.
Well, I mean, what's the story of Jason?
Yeah, the story of Jason. Well, it started in prison. I got convicted of my third felony right before the three strikes law passed in California over 20 years ago. And, I did about 2.5 years in there. When I got in, I realized I didn't fit in at all. And that, this was sort of a subculture that they had accepted for themselves. And me, I was just engaged in malicious mischief as far as I was concerned. But when I got in, I went, well, this is serious. And the three strikes law passed. I went, well, that's really serious, which means if I committed another felony, it was 25 years to life. And I narrowly avoided that. And somebody doing a life sentence handed me a book by Tony Robbins and said, I think you might like this. And Tim Smith, D60807. And that, book transformed my life because I knew I needed to change, but I just didn't know how. And the Tony Robbins, and the NLP material really helped me do that. Transform my childhood and meaning and just the way I manage my own mind and all of that. So it starts there. I don't necessarily recommend that as a professional path for people. You don't need to go to prison, just so that that's not part of the course. It's not a prerequisite. And it really starts there. And then I got out. I was very lucky to do a short period of time. I got out and met somebody who said, do you want to do an NLP practitioner training? And I said, wow, you can get certified in that stuff? And got certified as a practitioner. And that's back when they used to mean something. It was a 6-month training. And now they're sort of on an assembly line. And they're teaching you how to do NLP on people, but not with them, is the primary distinction. So there's a lack of ecology. And it's really about manipulating people, hopefully for their own purpose. But part of the certification when I was doing it was that you demonstrated respect for the ecology of the being, which means them as a person, their family system, their community, and the world at large. And without doing that, then you're simply a really great something, but not what we would consider an NLP practitioner. Then the trainer training and the master practitioner training. And then I tried to, right around that time, my father committed suicide. We'll get to that later, but I tried to hang my coaching plank out at 25 years old, because Tony did it, right? And I hated sales. I hated marketing. I thought they were ruining the pure science, man, of NLP. And realized that if I didn't learn how to, inspire people to take action for things that it didn't make sense to me. They said they wanted this for years. Why wouldn't they? Well, there's lots of reasons why they wouldn't do that. So I realized I needed to learn sales. So I gritted my teeth and went to work for the Anthony Robbins organization, selling and training the power to influence sales training, which is a horrible way to learn sales, also a brilliant way to learn sales. Selling sales to salespeople, car dealerships, mortgage brokerages. Car dealerships always thought we were lying about stuff that was in writing. I don't know why. Maybe you have some insight. Yeah, what was the question?
Yeah, well, let's go back. I mean, so you wanted one thing. What were you in prison for? This is the question.
Oh, right.
Some questions that I asked.
I used to have a hobby that was frowned upon. It was stealing brand new sports cars off car lots. They used to have the lock boxes on the window. Actually, some of them still do, sadly. And you can drill. Actually, so I was stealing brand new sports cars off car lots. I don't know, tell anybody how to steal a car in 60 seconds. I'd say that's a different webinar, but it's not going to be.
Right. Okay. So mischief, and you didn't have the easiest childhood, and I think that's not something you don't talk about a lot. We did mention it briefly, But, you know, obviously a kid who's stealing cars at 19 maybe didn't have the most loving, supportive family life growing up. And so, yeah, I don't know if you want to comment about that, but.
Yeah, I mostly don't talk about my childhood because the rest of the life story is so uh, grueling for people to go through,
Right.
that I just sort of skip over, 0 to 18.
Right.
I'll give a couple highlights though. My first memory at 4 years old is being kicked in the chest through a door. My father kicked me in the chest because I tried to flush an apple core down the toilet.
Mm-hmm.
And it's why couldn't you? I mean, I've seen other bigger things go down there than an apple core. And he was a black belt in hung guard, tiger crane. So he was a martial artist. He started training me when I was 5, which is, people ask me if I was in the military, sometimes just because of the way I look at them. I go, no, I wouldn't last a day, but I was a martial artist from the age of 5 to 15. Yeah. But my father was, brilliant in some ways. He had me read In Search of Excellence when I was 13. And, his views on sexuality are the reason that I have never experienced shame. And he was the first one to mention modeling to me. If you don't know how to do something, find somebody who does it really well and just do what they do. Right. And there I am, 12 years old. And I knew more about sex and how to please a woman by the time I was, 14 than most guys ever learned. So I was very fortunate. And in virtually every other area, he was, considered a monster. So that's all I'll say about that.
Yeah, no, and the thing is, when somebody starts from that perspective, they could go to prison and stay in prison. Like you said, it was a lifestyle for some of these people.
Yeah,
but,
I'd actually fortunately completed my relationship with him when I was in there several years before he committed suicide, because of my childhood, and I sent him a letter, very great letter, taking responsibility for where I was at and, separating that out and saying, and stuff happened in my childhood and none of it was okay. He sent me the letter back saying addressee deceased in someone else's handwriting. And at the time I had about 5 minutes access to a phone once a week, at this prison way up in Northern California. And it took me 3 weeks to find out he was actually still alive. He was just fucking with me. And he fortunately sent the letter back. So I sent it to my mom, and I said, she goes, he says you're blaming him for where you're at. And I said, well, why don't you read the letter? You tell me. And she, of course, was amazed that none of that was in the letter. There was no blame at all. Just a lot of me taking responsibility. And that's separate from that is, this wasn't okay. So he was in denial. I'll just go into the self-esteem thing real quick, if you don't mind.
Sure.
He was in denial about who he was. This is my interpretation based on events I found out a month after he died, what had happened. His third wife, whom, he'd really abused physically, mentally, emotionally, verbally, everybody he'd ever been around, with the exception maybe of my little sister, maybe. No, actually, yeah, I'm not going to talk about that for her sake. So he was really in denial. And his best friend told me that he got on his knees crying with my letter saying that it was all lies. So, so he'd saved his third wife from an abusive marriage. And she says, this is her story, I have no reason to disbelieve her. She said that they had made love and she went to the bathroom to clean up and she came back and he, like, for no reason, just hit her. And she said, do you realize what you just did? You don't have to call the police now. And he looked at her and he pulled the phone out of the wall and said, well, why don't you go get me a beer and we'll talk about it. And when she was in the kitchen, he blew his brains out. And I have it that he couldn't handle the cascade of reality that came down on him when she said, do you realize what you just did? And he faced the fact that he had never, he'd abused everybody and been denial to everybody and even to himself about it. And so he couldn't handle the load of reality, the level of self-acceptance it would have required more ego development, more higher self-esteem. And, it would have had him not do those things. Anyway, those, who knows? Maybe she made it all up, but it makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm. Can I jump in here? And I think what you're saying, and I love this because you're the self-esteem ego development expert par excellence. And so can you take a couple of, so that story illustrates what happens when you deny what you're doing, don't take responsibility for your actions. Can you talk a little bit about what you learned from that, what your policy is on relationships and life and business, and then how you help your clients with these same issues?
Yeah. So I only have everybody has rules for relationships. They usually come out as, well, everybody knows, which they don't, by the way, or, you should this, or I love the everybody knows thing. I always go, oh, really? Everybody, huh?
Right.
But I really have, 2 or 3 basic rules. And first is there's no second chances on violence. One violent act and I'm gone. There isn't a, let's talk about that thing for me. It's it. But I let people know, like second date kind of thing, that's my one no second chance rule. The other is, though, you just tell the truth and you hear the truth. And I've found that is a simple but very difficult thing. So it encompasses a few things. It requires a few things. It requires self-acceptance, really. Like that it doesn't matter to you if somebody thinks you're weird or if somebody, doesn't like you anymore. What matters is you have an agreement to tell the truth. And that could look like complimenting them. People don't express positive things a lot. I was speaking to this woman I'll say courting. And she said, thank you for all the compliments. And I said, just so you know, I'm not trying to compliment you. Not that I don't want you to, enjoy that. But it's just me saying like what I'm thinking. It's just me going, I really appreciate this about you, or really enjoy that about you. It's not intended in any way to be complimentary, even though it is. But it's just I don't want to, why withhold that back? Why hold any of that back? And I think there's just not enough, authentic expression. But that could also mean, you did this thing and it made me really uncomfortable, and, and make a request around that. But it really is just about telling the truth and then hearing the truth. You don't want to be the excuse that people use to not tell the truth. And while you might have a bunch of stuff going on when they say something that's difficult for you to hear, I have it, especially with a woman when she's expressing something to you. The only appropriate response is, thank you for sharing that. You can talk about the rest of it later, but in terms of hearing the truth, you want to make sure that you are always a safe space to tell the truth. Otherwise, they will. I mean, people are sensitive. They're far more sensitive than they let on, and they are already looking for proof that it's not safe to tell the truth.
Right. We grow up in worlds where it's not safe to tell the truth. So that simple tip is gigantic for most of us.
Yeah.
And how do you find that this self-acceptance and telling the truth, how does it get in the way of people when they're building their business or building a practice?
Well, it doesn't get in the way.
Well, I mean, how does not telling the truth get in the way then? Yeah.
I wanted to make one more point.
Okay.
I don't remember what it was. Relationships, telling the truth. Self-acceptance. So let me say a little bit about self-acceptance. I think it's important. Self-acceptance does not mean to go, I'm an asshole. You're just going to have to deal with it. I've accepted myself. That's not what it means at all. It means having a profound relationship to the truth about yourself. So not being in denial is what self-acceptance means. And to say, I did that. And, let's look at what I need to do to avoid that in the future. So it's really about telling the truth to yourself about yourself. Self-acceptance has the paradoxical effect, well, having just defined it, maybe it's not so paradoxical, of accelerating your evolution, not slowing it down. So I just wanted to say that about self-acceptance so people understood what we were talking about.
So you can't actually move beyond anything or improve if you're denying what is right now, is what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah. So it's very, yeah.
Great. Thank you.
In business, it gets in the way because people all the time, they're in context. And by the way, when I say context, I mean all kinds of relationships and communities and careers, whatever, that are unfulfilling.
Right.
And they don't express that. Or they're working with clients they don't really want to work with, and they're, lying to themselves about that. Or they're really like, I tried to mainstream myself for, how long did we determine? 15 years or something? And, forgot about this whole, like, liberate people sexually thing that I was, up to when I was 25. Like, it's really what I'm supposed to be here to do. And, it's even now, it's, some of that's gotten pushed by the wayside in the last couple of months, even after it was revealed again in November. So,
well, there's different levels, definitely,
yeah,
of, finding yourself and expressing that. But yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, the weird thing is, in a non-dual world, what's authentic?
That's right.
if all you are is the consciousness that's experiencing all of it, and the rest of it's objects in your awareness, what's really authentic? That's a really high level question with depth. For most people, they're really clear what's authentic and what's not for them. You've been at the game 20 or so years, then you've got a lot more choice and a lot more latitude. You've also got far more responsibility in every interaction than the other person does, but that's another conversation.
Right. I think we need to kind of move to the next, please, because this could be a 5-hour conversation, I see already. So I was going to say, the first question was, the next question was, what holds holistic? Oh, by the way, we have the request that we both speak a little bit slower. So.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. So we'll both have to work.
Let me get my heroin. Hang on.
So what are the things that hold people back?
It was a joke, everybody.
In their business? What holds people back most? And we're going to come through the keys. So what are the keys to being successful? And then after that, what holds people back in these keys? What don't they do?
The keys, is that the components thing?
Yeah, let's start with that. Yeah.
So there's 3 components that are necessary to build a 6-figure. And when we say 6-figure, we mean $108,000 annually. 3 components and 1 principle, I'll say. And the principle is to be a living example of your work. Don't be overweight and be, doing weight loss programs, or, don't be morbidly obese, and don't have just a bunch of wreckage behind you with relationships, and be a relationship coach. There's some exceptions to that. Maybe you've had a few failed marriages and you learned a lot from it, and now you're in an amazing marriage. Great. But don't be just it's basic integrity. I don't think it's going to be okay anymore. I remember one of the sort of 2 sides of NLP, the dark side of the force, which is, Bandler, and then John Grinder, who was the ecology guy. And Richard Bandler would be there, teaching addictions. He'd be chain smoking on stage. It's just like, dude, come on, man. And I asked somebody about it one time who trained with him. I asked her, she's one of my mentors, and I said, why hasn't Richard Bandler freed himself from like the cocaine, like he's massively overweight, the chain smoking? And she goes, he's freed himself from the need to free himself. And I went, all right, but that doesn't work. People are looking for whether or not maybe not even know how to describe it, but they're looking for you to be in alignment. So that's the principle. And then the 3 components are to have a sales system and to use it. It should include formalized referral systems. To have free, accessible content so people can get a sense of you, a sense of your competence, and they have a reason to pay attention to you and stay, engaged. And then the last is to have a comprehensive package or series of sessions. None of those are optional, by the way. If you want to build a business, in something faster than 3 or 4 years, and you just do it by referral, which is how most people think of it. They just think it takes 2 to 5 years to build your business, because all they do is think about word of mouth or maybe some advertising, which is the biggest waste of money ever. Yeah.
Someone asked the question, and I think it's great. They said, can we repeat those 3, please? So.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah. Can you do that again, or I can
have a sales system and to use it.
Mm-hmm. So having a sales system and using it, right?
Yeah. And then having free accessible content. Those would be highlights, would be webinars like this. Live introductory talks in person are really important for if you're working one-on-one with people. You're more likely to have a higher rate of conversion in person. They just have a deeper sense of you. Geography is, challenging, and technology frees us from that. I get it. And I still say that in person is best for that.
Yes.
And to have a comprehensive package or series of sessions so that they have sustainability of change and you have financial sustainability. But really, the more you are in this business and are helping people, you'll learn that for deep lasting change, it requires the context to be in place for a while. Otherwise, our lives would be transformed after a 3-day weekend, not transformed for a few days and then back to, the same old crap. It requires us to be in a context. You wouldn't go to the chiropractor once and expect your spine to be transformed. So why do we go to somebody once and, expect it to transform, or one weekend to transform our lives? It's not the way it works. And it's the big lie that gets told. Now, your perspectives, what you think is possible, can be transformed forever through that weekend. But even that'll fade if you start to look at the habit patterns that come up and you go, oh, well, maybe it didn't, right? And then you start to talk yourself out of the fact that it actually did transform your perspectives, your beliefs about what's possible. But transforming your life, it doesn't happen in a weekend. Change is instant. Transformation can be instant. Evolution takes time.
Right. So the next question is, of those three things, which is the hardest for people to do and why, and how do they get over that?
Well, yeah. So more people in America fear public speaking than death. I was one of those people. If you'd asked me if I wanted to speak in front of a group or, die, it'd be a tough choice. I'd probably pick speaking, in the end. Well, if it really is between death or cake, I'll take cake.
Right. So that's hard.
I'd wait right to the deadline before I made the decision. Mm-hmm. I've noticed a lot of clients sort of disappear on me, not forever, but they start being evasive when it gets to, designing their talks. There's a couple secrets I'll tell you. First of all, nobody knows how it's supposed to go except for you. So, there's not, you're the only one who knows how it's supposed to go. And that should give you some freedom. Nobody's judging you. In fact, they're probably terrified to be up there, and they're thinking, God, if I was up there. And the other is that, what is the other? Oh, sometimes people misinterpret the sensations. Sometimes the sensations are actually just adrenaline appropriately preparing you for action. Sometimes it is actually, you're imagining it going poorly, which is how the structure of anxiety is imagining a future event with a negative outcome. So, that movie you're playing over and over in your head that has you, not doing well, we can change the movie. And then, but the other thing is, you just got to do it a lot. People go, how did you get so comfortable speaking? I gave 100 presentations. And after that, you realize you're not going to die, right? The fight or flight thing stops. Whether it's approaching someone of the opposite or the gender that you're attracted to, or whether that's, speaking in front of a group. Once you realize you're not going to die, you've done it enough, then everything else is easy. After 1,000 cold calls, they get easier. Or 10,000 in my case.
Yeah. Wow. I was always terrified of cold calling despite my mission experiences. But the thing about speaking was I've probably done 30 webinars or something since we started working together. And like everything that can go wrong has gone wrong. I've had my person here reset the router in the middle of a call and I dropped off and 25 people are all left hanging. Yeah. So I've had everything bad happen. And like Jason says, I still survived. Like people didn't start throwing tomatoes at me, or anything. So, yeah.
You're just telling the truth, it's like someone shut the router off. Totally. Like I would just say that in an email, but right. I'm kind of weird that way. I like the truth.
Absolutely. And we were able to, I was able to get that one back. You always catch it. So either I get back on the call or so far I've always got back on, but if I couldn't, you tell people that and people understand life happens, and stuff happens. So, but that's such a huge thing, that fear of speaking and overcoming that. So how do your primary suggestion is to practice. Anything else to get over that, I don't know what to say to a group thing?
Yeah, you're never going to know what they're going to get value from, and you're always going to give them value. So I've had people come up to me and go, God, the thing you said, and they tell me what it was. And in my head, I'm going, really? That thing? Out of all the stuff I said, that thing's the thing that made the difference for you? Oh, all right.
Okay.
So I stopped guessing what is going to make a difference for them and just trust that, I'm a fountain of value that and I care about them. So they're going to get tons of stuff from it. And, it will be the thing that I don't think is the most powerful, certainly. So just trust it, and and I'll tangent that relevantly to rates. Are people going to pay that? Well, which people for what? Where? And so, of course, someone will pay it, no matter what it is. The question is, we know of coaches that get paid $100,000 a year, right? And it's non-refundable, even if you don't like them after a month. It goes to a charity in that case. And they're doing quite well. So, there are people out there who will pay anything for that. I think they should be blushing about some of the stressors they put in place, but apparently they've come to the conclusion that that's the best way to get the most value into someone's life. But are people going to get value from what you have to say? The people who came will, they'll certainly get value from it.
So I just want to underscore this, you don't even know sometimes. You don't realize what the important part was, what you said. We think, well, do I know enough? Yeah, do I know enough? Am I good enough? Well, the funny thing is the part that you don't even understand is just, you just think it's normal, or you've been able to do this forever. That's the thing that you say in passing that you don't even pay attention to. And people are like, oh my God, wow, that was amazing. You've changed my life. So yeah, just get out there and start sharing, just start speaking, and you'll be figuring out what's going on. You'll figure out what you should be presenting and what's valuable to people.
Somebody, I can't say who, because his wife made me agree not to use his name anymore. And anyway, whatever. So one of my closest friends used to say that I would say stuff that was life altering, like I was pulling something from under my fingernail and casting it off. Like, oh yeah, well,
right.
It's like, you don't realize it, the density of value that I'm like, well, it's just obvious, isn't it? Well, it totally wasn't. That was why I needed to learn sales. I'm like, well, this is obvious. None of it's obvious. Otherwise, if it were, we wouldn't be in business.
Right. And I'm going to suggest that everybody who works with you, they have those things too, that they don't realize have that value. And,
yeah, I only work with extraordinary people.
Absolutely.
Now, the percentage of them that realize they're extraordinary is smaller, than I would like, but they come to know it. They come to know it. Just partly because of my, quiet confidence about it. I just expect greatness from people I'm around, especially my friends. But I've gotten feedback that I don't acknowledge people enough. I go, well, you're a friend of mine. Excellence is expected. Come on, you're extraordinary.
So, okay, let's move on to the next question. So when people say, okay, I don't know if I can do a long-term program, I don't know if I have enough content, or I won't have enough, make enough money. People are expecting one-on-one individual sessions from me. What do you tell people who bring that up?
Which part?
How do I do the transition from the one individual sessions to long-term programs?
Yeah. By the way, I'm going to say something really like it's a fact. So we could do all the caveats from my perspective or in my experience. I'm just going to say this is the reality. If you don't have a package, you're never going to have enough money in this business. You cannot or build a sustainable practice. You cannot do it with one-off sessions unless you're doing like all day breakthroughs and they're, 10 grand or something. And then sure, you can get by with that. But from a couple hours a week perspective, or, you need to have a package. It's just impossible. I'll say it's impossible. You can get away with other things, but you can't get away with that one. So the transition is, you just do what you think you can do, which might be 6 sessions, it might be 12. I mean, the math that we're going to lay out predicates on the fact you'll have at least 12, I think, isn't it? Or was it a 6-month package?
It has to be 6 months to get to 100.
Okay, great. It has to be 6 months to get to 108,000. Thank you. I've been informing people.
Otherwise, double the price, and then it's 3 months.
Yeah, so let's actually demystify the math really quickly. $108,000, how do you get there? It's an odd number, right? You get there by signing 2.5 clients a month to a 6-month package at the very reasonable Bay Area, by Bay Area standards. People coming right out of Coaches Training Institute with almost no, real coaching skills are getting $150 an hour. I wouldn't trust somebody who was making less than $200 or $250. I wouldn't think they were competent, at least in the Bay Area. But so at $150 an hour, 2.5 clients a month, and in 6 months you'll be at a run rate or on pace in layman's terms to make 108,000 in the following fiscal year. So it's 18 months from 0 to 108,000 is what that looks like. Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, that's great.
It's in the chat window, so you guys can.
Yeah, just toss the math in there.
Yeah, it's presupposing 1 hour a week, or 2 hours, twice a month. So you can obviously change those numbers, and as long as the total stays the same, and get to 108,000. It sounds really simple. People would even go, well, why do I even need to take a course for that, though?
I can talk about that all day.
I think it's going to come up.
The devil is in the details. You try something, it doesn't quite work. Maybe then not I just want to say really quick, a little advertisement for one-on-one coaching, as well as working with Jason, was yes, you get all of this details, and you can buy anyone's course for $1,000 that tells you how to do this ABC 1, 2, 3. But the problem is you're going to run into a specific thing that is connected to you, and then you're going to need someone to troubleshoot, brainstorm, help you through that problem, that belief, that emotion that's blocking you from actually being successful in this process. So that's why
the emotional component is the biggest one.
It's huge. Your emotions, you don't see how much they're controlling
the
your life, your business. Okay, so next question. What is a sales system, and why do people need it?
What is the sales system? Well, you're using a sales system whether you know it or not, first of all. Sometimes that sales system is chance and luck, prayer, throwing incense to the universe, whatever it is that you do. Mm-hmm. What is a sales system? A sales system is a process that you have that's formalized, it's systematized, that you can take people through. What's step 1 through 4? What do you do next? And partly that's so that you can tell them what you're doing next, and they can say, great. There's this idea of permission-based selling, which is different than the book Permission-Based Selling, by the way. I thought the phrase was appropriate. I didn't realize there was somebody who had a book and a whole system around permission-based selling. So I don't mean her work. What I mean is, some people call it pre-framing, some people call it safe porting, some people call it setting context, but you go, here's what we're going to do. Does that make sense to you? Is that okay with you? They say yes, you say great. And essentially you want to make sure that they never feel jolted in the process, because if you at least will have to regain rapport. They go, oh, I wasn't expecting, to